Believe it or not, there are only a few days till the new year, and what better time to start learning Notion than now? I'm sure by now you've already seen a few 2025 Notion templates floating around. Probably makes you feel excited, probably also makes you feel overwhelmed. And while I did post a tour of my Notion template back in 2023, I won't be making a 2025 template tour this time around because I still use my template to this day. I've made a few changes and improvements since then, just a few ones, so the template works just the same. I just think that me making a new template would shift the focus on the design rather than on actual meaningful work using Notion. So if you want to see or use my Notion template, feel free to watch my previous video and make tweaks as we go through this video. But throughout this one as well, I will be guiding you in creating your own template similar to mine, just so you have the fundamentals laid out before using templates. So let's get started. First things first, what is Notion? For those of you who aren't familiar or haven't heard of it yet, Notion is an all-in-one workspace where you can organize your personal, your academic, or your work life. Literally everything in your life. For me, I like to think of Notion as a digital home, a huge empty home. So in our homes, we have different rooms. One room might be your bedroom, the other might be your office, another your kitchen, and another your reading room. Notion works just the same. Every page or room you create within Notion can serve as a bedroom for keeping track of your routines, an office for managing and accomplishing your tasks, or a reading room for all your books and notes. You have the ability and liberty to transform Notion into whatever tool you need. So how do we get started with Notion? I know firsthand how difficult it is to start creating your own workspace in Notion. I've had friends and classmates telling me how they've had such a difficult time learning how Notion works. I myself felt so overwhelmed and confused when I first started, and I think that difficulty stems from the unlimited possibilities that come with Notion. There are so many tools, functions, and customizations that we tend to seek templates instead. Templates are great, don't get me wrong, but some of these templates you see online, those that are overly aesthetic, eye-catching to draw our attention, and tempting to use, have already been so curated that they fail to establish the basics and the fundamentals of Notion, leading most of us to feel overwhelmed. So instead of starting with a template, my suggestion is to start writing down what you want to manage with Notion. For me, there are three aspects of my life that I want to manage: my personal, my academic, and my work lives. Under each of these areas, list down specifically what you want to organize. So for my personal life, I would want to organize my routines and my schedule. For my academics, I would organize my courses and my deadlines. For my work life, that would include anything and everything that's part of my workflow of content creation. Dumping everything you want to organize, everything you can think of, on a piece of paper makes it easier to see how to better organize your workspace. Instead of having just a jumble of ideas in your head, you now have a better visualization of what's in your life. You can see any missing areas and you can structure these areas better in your workspace. So pause this video, write down your list, and let's proceed to creating our first workspace. This is Notion in its simplest, most basic form. On the left, we have a sidebar, and within the sidebar, you can create and switch between your different workspaces and accounts. You can use Notion AI, which is a new addition to the app. You can check all your notifications through this inbox, and you can manage all your different pages. So to create your first page, you just have to click on this plus button beside the private section. Private just means these pages are visible and accessible only to you. So as you can see, there's also a shared section below for pages you share with other people. So let's say you've created a bunch of different pages and you want to access a few of these easier than others. All you have to do is click on this three-dot menu beside the page and add the favorites. This will create a new section in your sidebar for all the pages you've pinned. Now let's turn this empty page into your life dashboard, your main space, as an example. So again, we have Notion as our home and pages as the room. In the real world, to make an empty room an office or a bedroom, we need furniture. In Notion, we call them blocks, building blocks. Everything you add on a page, whether that be a text, an image, a file, that is called a block. So we have basic blocks and advanced blocks. To access these blocks, you can either hit slash on your keyboard or click on this plus button when you hover over the leftmost side of a line. This will open up all of the tools you can use within Notion. Might seem overwhelming at first, but let's start with basic blocks. So let's take the list we've written a while ago, the list of everything we want to organize in Notion, and for the purpose of helping you create your own workspace, let's say you have a list similar to mine. In my life dashboard, I would want to have a checklist of my routines because this would help me stay on track with my habits at any given time. So to introduce basic blocks, let's start with text. Let's write down routines. Now, when you highlight this text, you can see a bunch of different formatting options. You can change the text color, you can change the background color, you can also change this plain text into a heading. So let's turn that into heading 1 for now. So for my routines, I'm just gonna write them down. I have a morning routine, an evening routine, and a weekly reset routine in place. Now let's highlight everything, hover over the leftmost margin, and you can see this vertical ellipsis button. Click on Turn Into, and then we can turn everything into heading 2 this time. Once you've created these headings, Notion creates an outline for you on the rightmost side of the page, and this allows you to navigate through the page easier. Under each of these routines, you can write down all of the habits you do for each of them. So again, open up your tools, and you can choose to either use a to-do list similar to a checklist, a bulleted list, or a numbered list. Let's use a to-do list as an example, just so we can use these lists as a tracker. I've already added a complete checklist of mine so I can show you all other basic blocks better, but of course, if you have more routines, you can just do the same thing. If you have more habits under each of these routines, you can simply add more. Now, let's say you find this format too space consuming. What's great about these blocks is their flexibility. You can change one block to another and vice versa without any difficulty. So instead of having these routines as a list, one after the other, let's turn them into toggle lists, which are basically collapsible lists that you can open and close whenever you need. To do that, again, hover over the leftmost margin, click on the Options button, and then turn into a toggle list. Now, highlight all of these habits under the morning routine, and then drag that under the toggled morning routine. What this does is creates a collapsible list of your habits. We can do the same for the remaining ones, and as you can see, you've saved space on your dashboard and you've kept everything tidy and organized. Another way you can format your routines is by turning them into pages. In Notion, you can actually create a page within a page. For example, instead of each of these routines being toggle lists, we can actually turn them into pages. All you have to do is click on the Options button, then turn into a page. This creates a subpage within your life dashboard. So when you open up this page, you can see and track all of your habits for each of your routines. Again, another way to keep your dashboard organized. Now, if you're already happy with this layout, you can keep it as is. Personally though, I'd prefer adjusting the header style because I want these headers to stand out more and I want the sections in my dashboard to be easily recognizable at a glance. So to do that, I like to use the callout block. In this block, you can change the icon to whichever emoji you want. You can also change the background color to suit your style. Now, briefly going over the other basic blocks, we have the divider, which essentially just creates a line to separate your dashboard into different sections. I don't use this as much because again, I have the callout block to organize and section my dashboard, so I don't rely on a divider anymore. We also have the quote block. So let's say you want to add a motivational quote for your routines. You can do so by using this block. This is also really helpful if you're using Notion for your notes. So if you're taking notes from the lecture and you want to add information from your textbook, you can easily differentiate between your lecture notes and your textbook notes by using this one. There is also a table block where you can tabulate any text. Now, I wish there was an option to add an image within this table and to change the border style because that would be really helpful for note taking, but as of now, this block is pretty limited to just tabulating texts. Now, I'm gonna skip over advanced blocks just because I think it's more suitable to teach you about them later on in this video, just after this one, so we won't push them off for too long. Just for now, let's talk about databases first. This is where Notion can get complicated, but this is also one of Notion's best and most powerful features, I would say. Databases are incredibly useful for managing any content or topic that has a bunch of detailed, interconnected information. They give you a place in your workspace to organize and visualize large amounts of information without anything getting cluttered, messy, and overwhelming. So, referring back to my list, I would also want to use my workspace to stay on track with my schedule. Having a calendar in your dashboard that you can easily see and access is so important so you don't end up missing out on anything. And to keep track of my schedule, I'm going to use the calendar database, and we're just going to name it Tasks to Do. Now, when we try to add a task in this calendar, let's say we're adding a worksheet due for a specific course, you can see that there are different properties, date and tags. Properties are important in organizing your database. They're like the labels you attach on your notebooks or the tags you see on your clothing that give each of them their unique properties. In Notion, these properties can be anything and everything. Since we're creating a calendar for tasks to do, I'm going to keep the date as the due date, but I'm going to remove this tag's property. Now, if you click on add property, you can see all different types. I'm going to use select, which allows you to choose one from different options, and I'm going to rename this into semester. In our university, we only have 2 semesters per year, so I'm going to write 1Y, 1S for the first year, first semester, and 1Y, 2S for the first year, second semester. For each of these options, we can also change their colors, and so each time you add a task, you can categorize them into either the first or the second semester. Now, I'm also going to add a multi-select property, which allows you this time to choose multiple options. I'm going to rename this into type, which refers to the different types of tasks. So say you're a student, you have an exam, a quiz, an assignment, or a meeting. Using this multi-select property, you can now choose multiple options instead of just one. So if you have an assignment that also serves as your exam, you can choose both options. Aside from those properties, we can also add a status, which is incredibly useful for calendar tasks. And we're just gonna change the color of each of them. Once you're happy with your properties, you can even rearrange them however you like. There are more property types, and I'll leave it up to you to explore each of them. But for this video, we're just going to keep these 3. Now, if you click on this 3-dot menu on top of the calendar, you can see a bunch of customization options. You can choose which properties to show. In my case, I would want the type and the status to be visible in the calendar. You can also set a filter for your calendar, and these filters basically allow you to pull out specific tasks from your main calendar based on specific properties. So say you only want to see tasks for the first semester. You can do that by adding a filter for the semester and selecting only 1Y, 1S. If you want to see only your exams, you can also add a filter for the type and select only exams. I have the filter now for the first semester, so we can change this name into 1Y, 1S instead, which pertains to tasks for the first semester. Now, when you click on this plus button on top, you can add a calendar view. We can use the second calendar view to pull out tasks under the second semester. So again, create a filter, but this time, select only 1Y, 2S. Now, we can view the tasks for the first and second semester separately while keeping them in the same calendar database and without having to create separate calendars for each of them. We can also add another view to see all tasks for all semesters, but instead of using a calendar, let's use a table view instead. Let's rename this into all. And as you can see, it displays your tasks in a tabular form. We can further organize this tabulated calendar by sorting these tasks in the order of their deadlines. So again, click on the calendar options, sort by the date, and click ascending. This way, you can see the tasks that are closest to the current date. You can also view this into a list using the list view, so you can really transform your databases in whatever way works best for you. Now that we have our routines and our schedule all set up in our dashboard and we've checked off organizing one aspect of our lives, let's proceed to organizing our academics. According to my handy dandy list, I would love to have a space in my workspace to store all information related to my courses. Since that will deal with a lot of information, I would again need the help of databases. But this time, instead of a calendar, a table, or a list, let's use a gallery instead. So I'm just going to rename this into my program. And let's add a new page. Each page in this gallery, therefore, would correspond to a different course. So let's rename this into one of my courses as an example. For the properties, let's remove both of these current ones and let's add a text property. Rename this into the course title, add another text property, and rename this into course description this time. Now we can add both information onto this page. We can also add another select property, and let's use this to write the year and semester. Same format as before, write the year and semester in the options. Now within this course page, you can add all information related to your courses. I've added a few callout blocks to section this course page. You can add more and you can also remove as you deem fit. But within this course page, you can write the professor's information. You can embed a link to your course's website. You can also embed your course syllabus, and you can also store all your notes here. I personally take my notes on Google Docs. I have a video on that if you want to check that out. But if you want to use Notion as a space to keep everything in your life, including your notes, I'm going to teach you exactly how to do so. So let's use a tabular database and rename this into academic notes. Add a new page and rename this into the topic title. So say we're writing our notes about the history of microbiology. Open the page and let's set up the properties. We can add the year and semester like we did earlier, and we can also add another select property to define the course under which the notes are for. So for this one, let's write Bio 120 as an example. Once you've set the title and the properties up, you can now start writing your notes. I've copied my notes on this one just to speed things up for us, but let's use this as an opportunity to talk about advanced blocks. Starting with table of contents. Once you add this block, it creates an outline of all your different headings. This, similar to the outline you see on the rightmost side of the page, allows you to navigate and move across the page easier. Next is the equation block, which is dedicated for writing mathematical equations. We can also create custom buttons in Notion, which is really helpful for automating specific tasks that you do frequently. So for example, if you're struggling to keep up with formatting your notes during a lecture, you can create a custom button that automatically creates a structure that you can write on. So let's rename this button into Add Notes. And as you can see, when the button is clicked, you can do a bunch of different actions. You can explore these in your free time, but for now, let's insert blocks. Open our tools. Let's add heading 1 and a text below. So now, during your professor's lectures, you can simply click on Add Notes and you already have a heading and a body text that you can write on, already formatted for you to use. Next is the breadcrumb block, which just displays the location of your current page. Another advanced block is the sync block, which by its name allows you to sync content across different pages in your workspace. I use this for storing my inbox, any task, reminder, deadline that I have yet to process in my working brain. And I made this inbox into a sync block and not just a regular text block because I can simply copy this and paste it onto another course page. I can even paste this block onto my main dashboard if needed, but in this way, any changes I make in this inbox will reflect across different pages, allowing me to be reminded of tasks or deadlines that I need to sort out. I don't have to switch to different pages just to look for this inbox. I have it synced across different pages. Within your course page, you can also add different forms of media. So aside from adding your syllabus and your course's website, you can embed an image, a link, a video, an audio file, and a bunch of other content from different apps. We are done with blocks. Let's go over formatting our pages. When you click on this three-dot menu on the top right of the page, you can change the font to either default, serif, or mono. I prefer to keep it on the default setting, but of course, your preference still. You can also change the text size to a smaller one, which I prefer, and you can also change the page width. I prefer adjusting it to the full width because this allows me to maximize the spaces within the page. So right now, we have the contents in our live dashboard in just one column, one after the other. But in Notion, you can actually move blocks around to make more than one column. If you click on this options button beside each block and drag that beside another block until you see this blue line, you can add another column. I'm just going to move the calendar below the callout heading, and now we have two columns. You can also adjust the width of the columns by simply hovering over the middle, and you can see this gray line click on that line and drag that to adjust the column width. As simple as that. Other page formatting options include changing the page icon and cover. So if you hover over the topmost side of the page, above the page title, you can add an icon and you can choose from different emojis, or you can even upload your own. You can also add a cover, so you can select from one of Notion's provided covers, and again, you can also upload your own. Now, let's talk about widgets. In my experience, widgets don't quite offer as much functionality as I was hoping for, which is why you can't really see any widget in my Notion template. Yes, I still want my template to be aesthetically pleasing, but only to a certain degree. If you watch my Notion tour, you'd see that I'm all for functionality. Every block in my workspace has a function. And that's because when I'm working on Notion, I don't want to waste any space. I want my priorities front and center. However, if you want your Notion to be more aesthetic, apart from using the blocks that Notion already has, you can use widgets from external sites instead. When I was starting with Notion, I used to try out widgets from Indify, but from what I've gathered, there are now other sites that offer a lot of other widgets. But for the purposes of this video, let's try adding a widget from Indify. So as you can see, these are the widgets you can add to your workspace. Let's add a clock, for example. Now you can customize this clock however you like. As you can see, there are a lot of customization options on the left which you can explore and try out. But if you're satisfied with this format, you can simply copy this link below, go back to your Notion workspace, open your tools, let's choose embed, paste that link, and now you have that widget. So that's a wrap on the basics of Notion. I hope you found this guide helpful. If you have any other questions or if you need further guidance, feel free to reach out. Thank you so much for sticking around. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!